Welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television and then do it all over again the following episode. My name is Colton Brown, but you may know me as Muad'Dib, and with me are the Lisan Al-Gaib and the Kwisatz Haderach, Andrew Meadows and Henrique Jaime. So we're here to talk about Dune. Again, we're here for part 2 of Dune Part 2, which we could make the episode just called Dune Part 2, Part 2. I recognize there's a little bit of humor in that. But in keeping with what we did with the last episode, which we called non-spoilers, this is spoilers. This is Dune Part 2 spoilers. So before I say anything else, I do want to just encourage everyone, if you happen to be here and you haven't heard the first part of our coverage, our non-spoiler coverage of Dune Part 2, you definitely owe it to yourself to go back and check that out. Andrew was very excitable. Talked about some flaming chrome ball spaceships, maybe some claymores, lots more things that maybe we'll circle back around to in just a little while as well. We got a little overexcited about Dune, and how could we not? You know, it was to be expected. I think I boldly predicted, maybe this will just be another 3+ hour episode. Now maybe try like 5 hours or so. And so, you know, we had the genius idea, instead of just doing one big mega 5-hour episode, which I don't think anyone would listen to, understandably so, why don't we just do 2 episodes, each less than 3 hours? Brilliant. It's genius stuff, I say. So here we are. We are going to get into some spoilers for Dune Part 2. We've got, again, a lot to get into, very much continuing the conversation that we started with non-spoilers. But let's just get into it. Let's do it. Let's get into it. Full spoilers for Dune Part 2. And probably, generally speaking, spoilers for the book as well, which obviously this covers a lot of.
Right.
I mean, obviously, we've all read the book at this point. If anyone wants to have a full, proper, ink to film experience, you have the Ink to Film podcast for that. I know they covered Dune, the book, into Part 1, and they very recently covered Part 2 as well. So for someone that's really like looking to sink their teeth into the book to film adaptation differences, that's probably a good way, good place to turn. I'll put some, links in the episode description if they want to check their podcast out. But obviously we've got our own takes too, having the benefit, one of the few times where everyone involved in this podcast has read a goddamn thing and now has seen this adaptation. Right. It's very rare for us. We would be very bad at doing their podcast because we are not good about that sort of thing. But we are enlightened indeed. So who wants? I don't know how you guys want to do this. I'm okay with jumping around. We can kind of go in order. I don't really care. I don't know how in depth with certain things we want to get in terms of spoilers. Obviously, we've danced around a lot of stuff, but I don't really know if we have a real structure that we want to adhere to here. I'm kind of open.
I think there's a lot of like character things that you could hit on.
Yeah, we could do it by character.
But I did want to share something that I knew that the Rotten Tomatoes was looking good for the film, and I wanted to see kind of how it was. Pretty good. It's sitting at 93% for critics and 95% for audience, which I feel like for nowadays is pretty hard to like hit 90 for both, like please critics and audiences for different
usually
things.
You get, I feel like a lot of things are polarized. You get really good audience score and like, middling to bad critics or vice versa, so.
And I'm almost surprised at the audience score because, like you said, I don't know if this is necessarily for everyone. This is like truly sci-fi. But there were 2 reviews in particular that I thought were pretty funny that I just wanted to share with you. So, of course, these are the negative reviews. So, it's a fatuous, like Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings films. Nothing in Villeneuve's Dune series is as good as Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon, which revives mythic understanding of both mankind's history and faith.
Is this Armand White?
Whoa! I have not seen. Actually, it is Armand White.
See, he's a fucking troll. He says he's a troll. His whole shtick is being a troll.
You were able to call out that critic by name.
That's pretty bad.
Made like decades of work of just being a film critic troll. He's a contrarian. All he does is things
everybody thinks this thing. I'm gonna flip it.
Yeah. So Rebel Moon, people think it's bad. So I think it's heightened cinema. Zack Snyder is the height of cinema, and this thing is popular and people like it. So therefore, it's bad. And also, this other thing that's bad is way better. Yeah, that's his whole shtick. He's been doing it for literally decades now.
That's his thing.
I threw it out half-heartedly as a joke because that
it actually was.
But I think people have recognized. Oh, this gets me clicks because people get fucking mad about it. They're like,
right. And I'm almost like,
how could you not think Dune's good? I'm mad about it. I'm going to read this review and hate this guy. Like, that's all it is. It's just click farming.
And I think like everyone's an individual. Everyone has their opinion. Like, I think like,
but some opinions are wrong, right?
Certain things you say, like this movie.
Yeah. So another one that I thought was interesting was when the film centers on real locations and real structures and props, Greg Fraser's cinematography and Villeneuve's vision come through reality. Unfortunately, the film is heavily reliant on visual effects that often look poor at best. And I'm like, that last line.
Yeah.
Like the CGI looks bad.
The Flash?
I'm like, the CGI is fantastic.
I guarantee you the
CGI
things that person
incredible.
thought was CG was probably practical. Steven thought
but
the
it looks
same
good.
Thing. He thought some things that were he thought some things were CG, and it's like I don't know, dude. Like I won't debate about it, but I'm pretty sure that's practical.
No, like I think there's one scene in the first one where it's like Paul's vision of the fight that like throws me off a little bit.
That's very CG-y, you know, like the suits and stuff. Yeah,
I don't have that in this movie. There's not one scene that at least I can think of. I'm like, this looks incredible.
Visual effects, like this is a movie that mandates the use of extensive visual effects. You know, the worms, the ornithopters, everything about it.
The shield,
the use of atomics and everything. Like it all is obviously. They're not blowing up fucking mountains. You know what I mean? Like it's obviously visual effects that are using.
They actually, just so you know, they filmed in Abu Dhabi, I think is what it's called. And they actually legitimately blew up a mountain.
You know what?
Maybe I should have used that.
If anyone
for
was
going to
do it, Denny would be the one to blow up a fucking mountain.
WB purchased the mountain and they fucking blew it up.
Boom. Seems like a legit fun fact.
It's not a fun fact. I made that up.
Oh, okay. Right.
I was like, I don't know any better.
I had a moment where I was just like, oh, okay, he's doing a bit, and then no longer.
Then you kind of.
You know, they would do that potentially.
Right.
They would. You know,
Anyway, I think people like the film. Is my
people
main
do like
takeaway.
the film. I and it's not again. It's not to say that everyone's going to love this film. Not everyone's going to love this film. Certainly not everyone is going to love this film to the extent that it seems like all three of us do. And all three of us have been gushing about it, are big fans of it. It's not necessarily for everyone. But I do feel like, I don't know. There is a point where it comes where it's just like, oh, the visual effects weren't that good. And it's like,
well, what's your reference? Like, what do you think's a good special effect?
I guess
unless you're comparing it to Avatar, like that's the only other thing I can think recently that has
but even
better
Avatar,
visual effects.
I mean, I think this probably
but this is a better mix of practical and
this is knocking on the door of Avatar, especially because you're not. I mean, Avatar is somewhat more impressive because you're talking about full on
a whole
8 feet
new
tall
world.
blue aliens, and this is not doing that. It's a little bit more grounded in terms of its whole approach. But I don't know how you could make this
the
film
special
look better
effects
than it does.
elevate the practical effects in this movie.
I do.
Right?
I really do think this is the right mix.
I just, I think especially coming off this conversation of especially the one that Andrew and I had of, the creator did a really amazing job of creating this future world with these fucking robot people and the AI and stuff. And then Godzilla obviously bringing a big kaiju to life in such an impressive fashion was something that obviously was worthy of recognition. And this is very much real people, but it's larger than life, like alien settings. It's creatures, vehicles, everything that just feels otherworldly, but still very, very realized. I don't know. I don't want to get too much into the weeds on this, to be honest. But I think that is something.
That's a hot take, at least.
It's a hot take that it feels again
wrong
like
take.
a contrarian take, like of a. Like, let me just say this so I can make people mad, and I guess mission accomplished to some extent. My blood is not boiling like it did in the theater. Let's put it that way. But I just think that's just such a it's an absurdist take.
Everybody's entitled to their opinion.
We've seen bad visual effects in movies that cost 1.5 times what this movie cost. So, and we've seen great visual effects in movies that cost a fractions of this movie.
Right.
This movie's budget too. So like it goes both ways, but
everybody's entitled to an opinion. That doesn't make their opinion right.
Sure.
That's true. Yes. Fair enough. Co-sign that. Anyway.
I guess story wise, like, do we want to talk about Paul specifically? Because I feel like he's still the main. He's the main. Dude, right? He's still the main character.
Yes.
Right.
His whole journey is fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Because this movie really truly picks up with because we basically don't really get a lot of Fremen understanding in part one. We get the introduction of the Fremen. You get kind of the funny scene of Stilgar spitting, and Leto is kind of just like, fuck, like everyone's kind of taken aback by this fact that he's freely giving moisture as a sign of respect. Yeah. This movie just goes right into it right away, right? Like Paul is kind of stuck in this situation where his whole family, for the most part, is dead. He's stuck, he's there with his mom, he's with the Fremen, and he kind of has to integrate himself. And it's about how he's able to give himself over to their culture and their way of life. And from the beginning, you can tell he's a beginner. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's not the Muad'Dib. He's not the Lisan al-Gaib. He's not the Kwisatz Haderach. But, in the very beginning of this movie where we pick up, where like he's won his duel with Jamis, but it's not, he's proved his worth in combat, but he's not in terms of the ways of the Fremen.
Which I thought, that duel that happens at the end of the first, it like bookmarks the end of the first movie, right?
Totally.
I thought that was that's a huge departure from the book, right? Because that fight between
let the boy die so that the Kwisatz Haderach can rise.
Yes, but that happens in the Siege. It happens in the Siege. It happens in the Siege, right in front of all the Fremen.
In front of all the Fremen, yeah.
In the book,
okay, yeah.
And so
so everyone kind of gets to see like for themselves.
But what happened? I can't. So that was watching the first movie. I was kind of upset about that because that was such a pivotal moment for Paul's character. It was that moment that combat elevated him with the Fremen people, right? But in the movie, it was the Bene Gesserit aspects of Paul that elevated him with the Fremen people. The religious aspects elevated him with the Fremen people. So you went from having a combat thing in the book for the people to be like, hey, he's the Al-Gaib, to I'm going to use the fact that I see the past, present, and future, and and so I went from being kind of upset about the ending of the first movie, with the translation from the book to the movie, to really appreciating the way that Denny kind of distilled what was important in the aspects that he wanted to pursue, the way that he wanted to pursue the story. And I think it was a really smart decision because it elevated the Fremen people, it elevated the culture of the Fremen, and it elevated Paul. Because Paul had so much conflict in embracing those aspects of himself. So I thought that I think it was a very smart decision to go that way. Anyways, stop.
I mean, no worries. I think just in terms of Paul, it's really just to me, it was impressive how far he comes in this movie alone. Like number one, really just, he gets the shit dumped on him, but it leaves him in a place where like he shows off his combat prowess, obviously, as we talked about, but like, that's it. That's kind of where it ends, and then number two, he's still kind of raw, he's this white boy, just hanging out with the Fremen. He's nothing. He's an outsider. He's not, he doesn't know their ways. He doesn't know how to do things, and like they kind of riff on it. Like he does the sandwalk, and then Zendaya's like, I forget what she actually calls him, but she makes fun of him or whatever. and then he kind of gets integrated a little bit, and then slowly but surely he becomes one of them, you know, and then gets elevated as a result of kind of the religious, you know, aspects of that. And this is, I don't know, somewhat dovetailing off of that. And feel free to cut me off, whatever you want to do. I thought it was really interesting, and I don't think this is present in the book at all, or at least if it is, it's more subtle than I remembered. This divide in terms of the fervor of beliefs between like the North.
Oh yeah,
I don't really think that's a thing. I think like there are like people who are like kind of fully in on Paul, and there are people that are a little more ambivalent, and then everyone.
But not these like two sects.
But not like kind of this kind of you know, geographical separation of the true believers versus the non-believers. I thought that was a really interesting thing, and it was interesting too because they put Chani in this non-believer crowd, I think, which I think is really interesting because Chani as a character is so different from the book, and that's definitely a separate conversation. But I thought that was a really interesting way of basically making, I think, highlighting how Paul embraced his role, which he's very hesitant. He's not very much gung-ho about this whole thing. He's seen this future. There's a holy war in my name, and you know, like, and he has that vision in the first movie, and he's upset by it, and he's taken aback.
He resents
by it.
the Bene Gesserit.
He resents it. He doesn't want this. He doesn't want this thing. And then even in this movie, I think for most of it, he's content to just be Paul.
That's not hope, he says to his mom.
Yeah.
Oh man,
he is so resistant to this whole idea that he is the Kwisatz Haderach or whatever else, you know, propaganda the Bene Gesserit have, you know, put up. And that's so interesting that the North is like, they fully bought into this fucking idea of a Messiah that the Bene Gesserit have planted hundreds of years ago, and or the South people are, and then the North people are a little more resistant to that idea. I thought having that kind of divide amongst the Fremen themselves made it more interesting for Paul's journey, because it makes more sense to me as for it's tough because, as we talked about, the book is dense. Paul, he's so prescient in the book, where he sees things in the future, but things are uncertain. He sees the past. He sees everything. Everything's very uncertain. And it's just him kind of like trying to wade through all this shit. Yeah. And it's just like, what do I do? I don't understand everything. Like, it could happen this way. It could happen that way, blah, blah, blah. This, I think, makes it a little bit more linear and a little bit more focused and a little bit more understandable in terms of how everything kind of progresses to the natural point of Paul's journey, where he realizes, I have to lean into this. I have to embrace my role. I have to do this because what it will do is prevent something worse. I know that what's going to happen is going to be bad, and it's not going to be good. It's going to result in a lot of loss of life or whatever. But to protect the people that I love, to protect myself, to protect my family, to protect the Fremen, I have to make this decision to embrace my role as Lisan al-Gaib. Blah blah blah.
I have to liberate these people. Right.
And I don't know, just to me, the way that they handle all of that, it's right. You're right. It's a distillation of kind of the ideas of the book. But to me, the way they handled that was just so impressive, because it makes Paul's journey as a character very, very believable. And I think having Paul kind of being a non-believer, kind of being I don't want to be a Messiah. Like, I'm an outsider. It's not really who I am. It's not what I'm thinking, to the point where he's in there and that siege, and he's, in this holy space where he's not supposed to talk, and he's talking. And because he's supposed to kill Stilgar, because, the only way that people, the Fremen know is, you have to be leader through combat, through killing, through taking it through violence. And he's like, fuck that shit. And he's like, this is the way it's going to be. Like, things are going to be different from now on. Man. This is the way I'm doing things.
What a
that
powerful
whole scene was fucking insane.
Goosebumps, right? Was it not the best scene? I think that's the best scene I've ever seen. It was so good.
Timmy is not an imposing man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's a slight man. He's I not a word I would use to describe Timothée Chalamet as imposing. It's not what I would use. But in that scene, he was fucking imposing. He was commanding. It's
acting, dude.
He was who he needed to be. Like, he was so good.
Also, like, hats off to the people that formed the fucking Fremen language. Does that scene go as powerful in English? I don't think so.
I don't know. Anyway, I know I've been ranting and
ranting. No, that's a good point, because, like, I think the biggest thought that I've had after watching this movie and reading the books, and I think like to keep it contained to Dune, the first book, and this movie, like part 1, part 2, like this clearly sets up Paul on a hero's journey. And I think where he ends up the movie is really interesting. And like, do we call is I guess my ultimate question is Paul our hero? Is he partial? Like, what is he? And like, how are we supposed to feel about him? Because like, I have certain feelings about it. And I think that's part of that's a very purposeful in the narrative. So like, I'm curious to see like, when you left the movie theater, like, what is your perception of Paul and like what he is to the Fremen and the story of Dune and the planet Arrakis?
So I think as a leader to the Fremen people, right? He has liberated the Fremen people. I will lead you to paradise. I will deliver on the things that I promised you. You know, as an emperor now, because now he's an emperor. Well, now he's set loose a jihad against the fucking known universe, right?
Right.
So as an emperor,
that's what he was trying to prevent the whole time, right?
Right.
Like, he's like, if I go south, I start a holy war.
Mm-hmm.
And millions, billions will die in my name, with the Atreides banner flying.
Yeah, and I will lead the Fremen people to paradise. I will create a paradise out of Arrakis, you know. And I think that
and I guess my like thought on that is like, he's leading the Fremen as an outsider and like as the Lisan al Gaib, the outsider who knows of our culture. And I think the biggest move that is from the books is like he takes on the Princess Irulan as his bride instead of Chani.
Mm-hmm.
in much in the same way his father had Rebecca Ferguson as a concubine.
Right.
Yes, but also he never had a second person. Like, I need to solidify my power by marrying someone. He's like, I can't marry this.
He kept his options open, but he never really pursued that in any way.
And then Paul is like, I will actively choose to marry the princess so I can solidify my role as the emperor.
And I'll also do it in a relatively dickish way where Chani has no idea what's going on, and she is going to be rightfully resentful of me.
And hats off to Chani for her, Zendaya for her fucking acting prowess. She didn't say anything.
She's like,
you could see the fucking...
Fuck this man.
Oh, you could see her rage.
Just betrayal.
Yeah. But like, I guess if Paul is going to lead the Fremen to the new rulers of the Empire, should he not take Chani? Should he not bring the Fremen and, like, I guess do a Game of Thrones like Daenerys, like break the wheel? Is he just like another cog in the wheel, so to speak?
I don't think that he could. I don't think that he could without marrying the known emperor.
But he followed the rules. Like, he challenged the emperor. He won the battle.
Well, I think to me that's the interesting thing is I think Paul marrying Irulan makes sense because he's trying to appease the great houses and basically say, I have legitimacy. I am married, through the Carino line. So there's legitimacy to my I'm
claim.
an Atreides.
Right.
So obviously I'm part of the great houses, and now there's legitimacy to my claim because I've now married the emperor's royal blood. It to me, it's the very ending of this movie that kind of throws that all into doubt, where it's just like, yeah, they don't accept your fucking reign. So actually,
they still don't accept it.
Right. So it's kind of at that point where it's just like, all right, do you throw away with like, all right, well, fuck this shit. Like, I'd never really, intended to do anything with you anyway. It was all very much for show.
Yeah.
This is the woman I love. Of course, now she fucking hates me, apparently. So yeah, I don't know. It's
I think it's interesting.
I think to answer some questions that have been thrown out, and I don't know that I necessarily chimed in on it, Paul, to me, by the end, is a conflicted character.
As he always has been, right?
Correct. But I think for me, as an audience member watching Paul, I am conflicted about him and his decisions.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Because I think up to a certain point, I'm with Paul. I'm there.
Right. He's
I
riding
think
the worm. You're
absolutely
riding the
hero.
worm. Yeah.
He's legit. He's awesome. He's cool. And then it comes to the point where shit really hits the fan, and it kind of feels like, oh no, I think I maybe actually am a little uncomfortable with everything that's happening. And I think I understand it on one hand of Paul making the decisions that he's making, again, because if he acquiesces to demands, the Fremen people are not liberated. It probably means Chani gets killed. It probably means the death of his friends and people that he's come to accept his family at that point. And for him, it doesn't mean power. It means he's done, potentially at a certain point too. And I think that he sees, again, like this idea of, if I can accept my role as Lisan al-Gaib, Kwisatz Haderach, whatever, and take control, I can control the fates of, my friends, the people that I love. And even if that means doing terrible things, it's the means justify the ends. And I think that's understandable from a character motivation, but for me as an audience member, again, it's kind of just, I'm hesitant.
Conflicted,
because what it is, as this movie ends, the Holy War begins. It's like, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing to have your fucking, the Fremen, going throughout the known galaxy or whatever and fucking killing people and the name of the Atreides banner and all that. Like, that's all not good. That's not good. That's not a good thing. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that, like, there was a good solution before. I'm not saying it was perfect or anything like that. But I'm not sure that that's necessarily better, is having this jihad, having this holy war.
Yeah, I think
these crusades. I think it's really difficult, and it's. I sympathize with Paul, and I sympathize with Paul doing what he did, but it doesn't mean I necessarily approve of necessarily what he is doing at the same time either. It's very, very much a.
It's good storytelling. Is what it is.
I get it.
Yeah,
I get it. But it's tough to tough to just kind of just sign off.
Yeah,
I guess
there was like a solution to his problems of like protecting his family and protecting the people that he loved, and what is that, and what does that cause?
Right. And is it the lesser of two evils? Maybe.
Right.
Maybe not.
So that's the thing. Like I'm better than the Harkonnens. I'm better than the current emperor. Does that make it right? And I think that's the interesting question, and I hope that we get a third movie and it explores even more of that. But I think where we left it off, I felt the same way. Like I'm all on board. Like we're riding the sandworm. We're becoming part of the Fremen. But there's also this humility of like, there's this one scene where Chani is talking about like sand walking, and then Paul's like, "Well, I read it in my books." And she's like, "Shut the fuck up." She's like, "I fucking was born here."
You don't know anything.
She's like, "Shut the fuck up." And he's like, "Oh yeah, like maybe you grew up here and like know what you're doing." So I think in like this and like many other narratives, it's like this outsider, and particularly in this movie, like putting in real world, a real world perspective on it. It's like this white man comes in to save this race of people who in the movie are depicted as like indigenous or like black and brown, and then he's the one who's special, and he does have those skills. So that's the thing, like he is able to accomplish like what he set out to do, but like most of the time he's all about like, I don't need to be the leader, I want to be part of you, and I want to like join you and do that. And then it becomes a point where he's like, no, I am taking control because I realize that I can do this. And I think that's an interesting point to examine Paul from. And the one last part is the first movie starts off with Chani's like little monologue.
Sure. Yeah.
Of like, these are the Harkonnens, these are what they do to our people. Who will our next oppressors be? And is that the role that Paul and the Atreides are taking over? Right, like, are you just because you're better than the Harkonnens, does that make you fit to rule?
Are you the next oppressor?
I don't know. Like,
right.
yeah, exactly. So,
well, I mean, maybe thematically tied into that is Paul Atreides is kind of a Harkonnen himself, isn't he?
He is part Harkonnen.
So, maybe he's not so different. He's a little prettier. We can all acknowledge that.
He's not bald. He's got good hair.
Timmy's looking better than Fade and company and all that. But
got good hair.
But yeah.
I think for the rest of the known universe, I think it's probably a real problem, right? Like I'm setting this loose.
Right. You've upset the established order, and now you're bringing a holy war onto a world that I think was probably fairly content overall.
Well, I mean, they were like the first movie says. You know what I mean? The Harkonnens are our oppressors. Who will our next oppressor be?
Yeah, well, yes,
you know what I mean?
For the Fremen, yes,
so for the Fremen, so the Fremen, you have generational oppression. And then you have this holy war that will ultimately lead to the people that have been oppressed. You will ultimately have paradise, right?
That's the goal.
That's the goal. Will you have it? Is it obtainable? We don't know. We haven't gotten that far, right? But what we do know is that these people are they're set forward on a road to where they're pursuing that paradise. They feel like they feel that they're pursuing paradise,
it's like
and that they are no longer
we're
oppressed.
On that route.
They don't feel like they're any longer. They don't feel oppressed anymore. They feel like they've been set loose on the established order that has been oppressing them for generations, for thousands of years. The Bene Gesserit have been planting the beliefs on these people for thousands of years, right? So, I mean, it's I don't know. It's
right?
I feel I feel like Paul's character obviously sees that conflict, right? That's what he struggled with the whole time. He's always seen the jihad, and he's fought against it. I don't want to go to the south because this is what will happen. But when he goes and he drinks of the water of life or whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
He sees that it's the only way forward. And it's the only way forward. Like, does eventually.
And I guess that's like what we perceive, right? Like, we are told to believe this is the only way that forward, things can happen.
Right? Exactly. Otherwise,
the real truth?
Otherwise, the Fremen continue under a thumb of oppression, right? And it just continues on. Otherwise, Paul dies, right? Because Paul's tried to be the Atreides family line has it's been they tried to kill them all off, right? So possibly it ends the line of lies and things from the Bene Gesserit and them implanting the religions and the faith and this and that. Because he tried to undo that. He tried. I'm not this.
Tried,
I'm not that.
But then he went into it, like,
and he leans into
this
it.
Religious. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, I've been fed, or someone has been fed as like the next, as the savior, as like the one, the Muad'Dib, and he's like, do I take that role? And I think the interesting thing is when you look at, like, when Frank Herbert talked about like why he wrote another book, and Denny, I think, really has bought into this, at least in the interviews that I've seen. He's like, it sounds like they really wanted to depict Paul as a kind of like a bit of a warning for like great leaders and like what great leaders can do, because they're charismatic, because they can gather a lot of people. And then what does that lead? So I think I almost think of it like the Batman quote of like, you either die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. And is that where Paul's at, like that in between stage?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's not, he's not Two-Face, to take that comparison.
Right.
But I think he can justify what he's doing, but I think from an outside perspective, you can also look at what he's doing and think, this isn't okay either. You know what I mean?
I think it's a very hard decision. I don't think it's an easy decision.
Right.
But I think it could. That's what I'll say. I think it could end the oppression of a whole planet's worth of people.
I think we have to see the ultimate end result.
The ultimate end result is eventually the jihad will end.
Whether he made the right call. Yeah.
Eventually the jihad will end. You hope that it ends. Well, it will end.
Yeah.
Eventually it will end, right? And eventually the people that have been oppressed on this planet, because it's the sole source of fuel for navigation around the universe, eventually these people they are liberated, right? So if you look at it, it doesn't make it easy. It's a very hard decision. And that's what elevates Paul's character from boy to emperor of the known universe, right? Is the fact that he has to make that call. Do I honor the people that I feel are part of my family now and liberate them at the expense of the known universe with the hope, or maybe he can see it. I mean, as we don't know, but he knows, with the hope that it will eventually end, the bloodshed will end, and these people are liberated, and everybody, and the war is over, right? I don't think it's an easy call. I think it's a hard call, and I think that's why Paul's conflicted the entire movie about it. Mm-hmm. And
he doesn't want it.
He doesn't want it. I don't want to do it.
Really, yeah. I guess until he takes the water of life, and it almost feels like
I feel like that's the point. Yeah,
his shit, and it kind of changes him in some ways too.
Right.
I mean, we haven't touched on Jessica and spoilers at all, but like the water of life changes her in a big way. So
her and the baby.
This idea that you're kind of irreparably changed from that point.
Well,
Another thought
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Water of life just I thought they did a really effective job of what it does. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah.
It's a good changes
you.
It changes
and how you get it and like what it means. What the dangers are to take it. Yeah.
I mean, you transcend. You know what I mean? You literally just become something else entirely. And I thought Paul's transition was really profound, and he's not emotional about the things that he has to do. You know what I mean? Like he acknowledges the emotions that other people have.
He knows the cost it's going to have, but again, the end justifies the means.
Exactly, right? Like he knows how to achieve the goals that he ultimately wants to see.
Right. I almost feel like this is like by the end, I think in a certain sort of way, he feels even more justified because the great houses are not accepting his rule. And like if you think about what happened in part 1, the Harkonnens, with the backing of the Emperor, basically decided the Atreides family cannot exist anymore. We are going to destroy them. So there's that kind of animus there that like almost feels like that is, everything he's doing is in service of the Atreides family and in service of the fact that Leto was just brutally slaughtered. Like I kind of understand where it's just like, you fucks just stood by while this happened. And maybe there's an open question of whether they actually really knew what was happening. Presumably all of the the great houses were not involved in this big plan between the Harkonnens and the Emperor to
I think they did talk about some of that stuff, like how like we have to like keep this separate, but like if they find out that the Empire like conspired against one house, like the other houses will probably turn on the Empire too. So yeah, I think this was more like exclusive between House Harkonnen and the Emperor.
But I feel like, I can't remember the exact details, but it kind of feels like that's information that if given to the great houses, maybe they're more amenable. And I can't remember if it is. I can't. It's been long enough that I don't remember the specifics of how they handle it in the movie, of whether it's just like, this fucking douchebag conspired with Baron Douchebag to kill my father, and did, obviously. And so it's like, like you should recognize that like this guy fucking sucks, and so does that fucking boy. That guy's dead now. But like, like I think there's that aspect of it too that I've kind of overlooked to this point. And it's like his whole like rage is totally justified and totally legitimate. And it's and again, it's a question of, okay, does that justify the fact that you can just bring these people and to other planets and create this big war? Like, no, not necessarily. But I do think that it makes Paul not Two-Faced, like I said, where he's not a full-on villain. He's not a full-on villain. I don't look at him as a full-on villain. I think he's maybe an anti-hero of sorts, where it's just like, I understand what you're doing. It doesn't mean I approve, like I said.
Right.
But I'm not mad about it. You know what I mean? At the same time either. Like, it's awful, but I understand maybe perhaps where you're coming from is kind of how I look at it. And maybe that's where a part 3, where a Messiah adaptation might get into like the full repercussions. Like when you can actually see what happens as a result of a holy war, maybe I'll feel differently, where I'm just like, no, that wasn't worth the cost. You know, like maybe it wasn't. Like the way that you've handled this is so not worth whatever. But I think purely in terms of part 2, part 1, all put together, like, I get it. You know what I mean? So like, I get Paul's journey. I get why he's so
and what it means
to embrace this, but then why he does.
What it means to be to serve the role of different people, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Like what it means to be something.
He must be the Duke. He embraces the Lisan al-Gaib.
Right.
And
to walk the shoes of different roles, you know?
And I think I think they do make it interesting because he defies that for so long. Whereas, like, if we want to get into Jessica's character, she, like, even more so than in the books, like, she's like, oh yeah, like, I am going to, like, almost push this as propaganda. And he criticizes her of, like, your Bene Gesserit have, like, pushed propaganda to these people that, like, make them hope for something. And he's like, but that's not hope, right? Like the line from the trailer.
Man, so good.
And like, she even is having conversations with her unborn child, who's now cognizant of everything, Leia. Right. And she's like, you know, we must convert the non-believers. And like, it's a very cynical kind of like approach to it. And then Paul, I feel like that's why Paul is so hesitant.
Right.
For so long.
He's so he's resentful of it because it fixed his hand. It made it to where the only way to move forward to deliver the people from oppression and for his family to survive, the only way forward because of the Bene Gesserit is to act as a Messiah. That's the only way forward. They fixed his hand to where he can only do one thing, you know? And it's pretty fucked up. They're pretty fucked up, the Bene Gesserit are.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, right. It all comes down to, I mean, I don't want this to be a general indictment on religion necessarily, but it shows just how much fervor it can inspire. And like, obviously we can see this in the real world too. And this is kind of a fictionalized take on that, but it's at the same time it's not far off the mark either. You know, of what it's trying to say about religious influences and kind of the carnage.
That's how powerful it can be.
The role of the emperor is
Princess Irulan says
exactly. She does say it, and that's exactly what I was going to say. You know, I mean, you underestimate the role of faith, the power of faith. Yeah. You know, you kill this person. He becomes a martyr. It elevates. It makes it more potent. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I thought her character was super compelling. I thought she was very interesting. But yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah. Is that? Is there anything else? I mean, we've been talking about Paul for a while. I think maybe it's a good time to move on and talk about other characters, like perhaps Jessica, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Jessica's complex.
Like we kind of talked about
Jessica +1 a little bit. We haven't really talked about how they decided to adapt Aaliyah's character, and
I approve.
I agree.
Like, because my whole thought is like, how do you make a precocious, not like child, like 8-9-year-old, like but like a toddler, like if you put Benny,
a little CG baby
up here. No, if you brought Benny and he just starts spewing about religion and philosophy, I'd be like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what like, it would throw me out of it so much, because you would have to like dub over it. And I think just on film, it would look so ridiculous. And we saw like
remember those E-Trade commercials? I think we got them with,
it would look like that. It would like some Boss Baby, like E-Trade thing. And I'm like, this would be ridiculous. Right. Like completely like,
we have to convert the non-believers, Jessica. And she like calls her out by name. We have to go to the south and push them.
That only works in the books. I just don't think you can do that in a movie.
There's a lot of stuff like in the book that like, because there's so much inner monologue and everything that like the book offers that like that doesn't work. I think the way that they handled it here was smart. Number one, because it's the ridiculousness of in this movie, which I think has moments of levity, but is overall pretty serious.
Mm-hmm.
Does a 2-3-year-old like functioning adult take you out of the whole goddamn movie? Probably, yeah. Probably,
definitely, 110%.
Like you have to have the perfect child to play that role, and that feels really hard. Like really hard to put on a child, and to put on an audience to buy into it.
But at that same time, too, you have to. The timeline in this movie is much more accelerated than it is in the book, right? Like,
totally, yeah.
Like like
that's a good
Paul's
point.
given
by a result of this decision. Yeah.
He's given a wife and stuff in the book, and
that's true. Totally acts from this.
It totally acts from this, right?
So, Jameis's wife.
Exactly, yeah, and that's totally so. The time that baby has to be born and this and that, the timeline's just totally different. It just doesn't work in this movie. And unless you take the time to explore the fact that Paul is married to Jameis's wife, and you do this and that, and I mean, you have to change the whole narrative, really, in order to make that Jessica's or Paul's sister work. And then when you do pursue that, does it actually work? And the answer is probably no. Like you said, I think they're pursuing it in probably the most natural way they can. And then if they make a third movie, well, then we can introduce an 8-year-old character that talks like
you can time jump where the character is older and it's not a big deal.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or you can, honestly, I'm not opposed to them, like, because of the weird effects of the water of life, that they artificially age her. And she just looks like Annie Taylor-Joy when she's 8 years old. It's not a big deal, because they've already kind of cast the adult Aaliyah at this point. So, I don't know. It was an interesting change for me. I'm just going to say my piece on it, and then, I'll leave it to you guys to do whatever with it. But I do think that the unfortunate consequence is accelerating the timeline. I think that hurts Paul's journey a little bit. I think it feels a little bit more believable when it's been a couple years or a few years versus less than, obviously, the length of a pregnancy. I think it has, obviously, the benefit of not having us to buy into a ridiculous 2-year-old, that knows everything about everyone sort of thing. I think that's fine. I think that Rebecca Ferguson was very good. I think that there's a lot of like intentional but sort of dark moments of humor of her just talking to herself. I mean, she's talking to Aaliyah,
right.
Not talking to herself, but everyone else is like, the fuck is that shit?
Yeah.
And obviously, everyone's just kind of looks at her like, oh shit. And even the moment where she takes the water of life and then they all fucking panic. They're like, oh, we shouldn't have done this. She was pregnant. That was,
yeah,
that
she's
was
like,
no. This is not good. But it was a great performance. The only thing that I think that it loses, and this is something that the book has, I think, as a result of having Jessica and Aaliyah being separate characters, is Jessica's character is totally transformed. Like, she's basically just a vessel.
She's all in
this movie. She's a vessel, obviously. She's a Bene Gesserit, and then she's kind of this vessel for Aaliyah. And I felt like there's a warmth to the character of Jessica that we see in part 1 and that we see in the rest of the book that is completely absent here. And I think it works for the story, right? Because it's because her whole motivation changes to basically being, Paul, you are the one. You know, it's about preparing Paul for the Holy War, for what's to come, for accepting his role where he's so hesitant to accept it. And so she goes further down this religious almost rabbit hole. And I think that's really, really interesting as a character. And then having this unborn person talking from the womb is just so unnatural, I guess. You know? Like it adds this kind of layer of uncomfortableness, like, I guess, like just everything is just tinged with this something's not right here, you know, sort of feel to it. But I liked it as a change because I think that I don't know that it would have worked as well. I think because of the tone of this movie,
so hard.
The tone of these movies, I think that's a really, really hard thing to have adapted, I think, effectively. So I get the change. I get why they did it. But it was interesting for sure. I think we lose a little bit of Jessica, and I think that's probably the natural like thing that I think that because of it's the form of the adaptation, that's the thing where it loses that makes me a little sad, is that you get Jessica kind of going into this one mode of who she is. But I think there's always a hope that maybe once Aaliyah is out of the womb, Jessica's personality gets a little bit more restored, Jessica, right? Like I think they could approach it in that sort of way if they wanted to continue the story in such a direction. So anyway, what do you guys think?
What about Chani? This is a big. I feel like we kind of talked about some of the differences, but like she's probably the biggest change from the books.
I think next to Jessica, I think she has to be probably the biggest change, where she goes from subservient lady, not wife,
just
lady,
like
concubine.
I will be your concubine, Paul. Whatever you say.
To I think someone who is very headstrong and
really embodies kind of like the Fremen people
and her
and challenges the Messiah narrative, right? Like she, in the end, probably is the only one that still challenges that when everyone else is bought into like, Paul's it. Like he, I feel like it goes from like a spectrum of like Stilgar to Chani, where Stilgar is just like the Lisan al Gaib. He's too humble to say he's the Lisan al Gaib.
So humble.
He's the Mahdi. And then Chani, who's like, I don't care like this what pass you see. Like this is not you. I really enjoyed Zendaya and her portrayal and this very complex character of Chani.
Well, it's nice that she was given an actual character here and not just, who's this pretty girl in my dreams? I really like her. I hope to meet her someday. Yeah. But I think that they added a lot of complexity to Chani that was not present in the book. You know, I think it's really interesting. I mean, it changes so much in terms of the adaptation because there's a whole child that is not present in this
they just
adaptation.
Skipped Leto the second.
And I think that that's kind of an interesting decision. I think a natural, again, consequence of we don't want to deal with fucking 2-year-old Aaliyah or 3-year-old Aaliyah. Like, we're not dealing with that shit. So no one's having kids in this fucking movie. But I think giving Chani the personality that they did, where she is resistant to this whole thing and is very, very kind of the whole way through, she is saying, just be yourself, you know, like you don't have to buy into all this crap. And I think that him kind of turning his back on her, and then I think even, I said as much a little bit earlier, like the way that he handles his marriage arrangement with the Emperor's daughter is so kind of crass and ignorant of how she's going to feel. He tells you, he's like, I'll always love you or anything like that, but like they're already kind of at a point like then and there where like there's distance, there's separation a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I think her decision to kind of just up and out of there when that happens is like,
makes sense.
Yeah. It's like this dude fucking sucks. I think that's something I didn't actually think about when I was talking about Paul earlier, is because of the way that they developed the relationship between him and Chani. That is another thing that makes Paul more villainous in my eyes, is the fact that he handles it so crassly and so, I don't know,
cold.
Like he's so cold. Yeah, he's so cold.
Yeah, he's like, well, she's the emperor. She's the emperor's daughter. I will marry her, and like that makes sense.
I get the political aspirations, and obviously it doesn't really work out the way he thinks it would. But even up to that point, like he is so cold to her, like he's so changed as a person. So I guess maybe resolute in his decision to just embrace his role as the One or the Muad'Dib or Lisan al-Gaib, the Kwisatz Haderach, how many ever fucking, Mother of Dragons, Breaker of Chains, you want to throw as many roles as you can on there. Seeing Chani's... Chani is kind of... If we want to talk, who is the hero of this movie? It's probably Chani, right?
I think it's Chani. I think it is, yeah.
Yeah.
She helps. I think
that, not knowing what comes in Messiah as a book, I kind of feel like Chani could be your hero from now on. Like, Paul might be too far gone at a certain point. Like, Paul is not Paul. Paul is not Paul anymore. You know what I mean?
Paul is the emperor. He's the emperor. He's the Muad'Dib. Like, he's not Paul Atreides anymore. Also, Doom Messiah gets weird. It's very weird.
No, we don't need it.
Every book gets more weird as it goes on.
I won't. I don't know if I'll give it a go right away or anything like that.
It's enjoyable.
Maybe closer to if a part 3 or a Dune Messiah adaptation happens, that might be the time.
Without spoiling things, there's a like clones / reanimated corpses. There's like more precocious babies. There's I don't remember if this one or the next one. There's fucking laser cats.
Right?
Laser cats.
I love a good laser cat.
There's like a laser cats.
There's a point where Denny has said, "I'm jumping out because I can't."
Yeah, but Paul does compare himself to like earthly figures, like Genghis Khan and Hitler. He's just like,
Interesting. Those are not the two people I would like to be compared to.
No. And he does it himself because he has knowledge of the earth. And I think that's the cool thing. Like this is like a human universe, but in the future.
Yeah, it's I don't know, man. I think he's a sympathetic character. Paul
I think that's what makes it interesting because like he's not all good, he's not all bad. Like, you understand where he's coming from, but you're like, what is he doing? Like, I think that's what makes it interesting.
And if like the way that he treats Chani, at the end of the movie is like I said, it's cold, it's crass, but it's objective, and he just thinks differently.
He's just
but
so
but at the same time, he's detached. You talked earlier about how Jessica becomes a vessel, right? Yeah, I mean, he is a vessel for a purpose. He's delivering the people from bondage, and he is serving the role as an emperor. And I've gone from a person to a role,
Yeah.
And I served the role, and part that may have been some of the conflict that he had earlier, is the fact that he saw the fact that I'm not going to do this because I don't want to do this, and because I surrender all of me to the roles that everybody has laid upon me. I can no longer be a person. I can no longer be me. I have to be the role of the role of the Fremen. I have to be the role of the Bene Gesserit. I have to be the role of the Emperor. I have to do these things, and I can no longer be myself. And so I don't know. He's a very sympathetic character.
Yeah, I sympathize with some of that at work. Sometimes I'm like, I got to be this. I got to be that. Can I just be me?
Yeah, I just want to be you, right?
I feel you, Paul.
Can we talk?
Maybe I won't start a jihad, but
can we talk about Lea Seydoux?
It seems like you want to say something, so by all means.
Oh, man.
Benny Bay?
Oh, Benny Bay. Benny Bay. I'd put my hand in the box. Totally.
Okay, so wait, quick question. Do you think they did it with the hand in the box the whole time, or is like that was like the preamble to
like a weird bondage thing,
because like if anyone's into that,
it would definitely be that dude.
It's fucking Fade Ralph.
Hey,
he's like, oh yeah, you got the Gom Jabbar to my neck. Oh, let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's definitely a kink for sure.
He's probably got a lot of kinks.
By the way, I read that the dude from that Netflix movie that we watched, what was that movie? The Western movie?
Buster Scruggs.
Buster Scruggs.
I was gonna guess Buster Scruggs, but
Buster Scruggs was cast in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Fenring.
And he was cut. Do you think that he's Léa Seydoux' husband?
Yeah, that's who he's supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, based on the book, yes. Yeah.
That's who he's supposed to be, right? That's
he's the Count Fenring.
Thought so. He struck me as that guy. I didn't read that, but I was like, oh, that's definitely definitely the Count.
Mm-hmm. Tim Blake Nelson.
He's not the only person that was cut from this movie. One Thufir Hawat did not make the cut.
Thufir.
Which I think kind of makes sense because there's this whole arc in the book of everyone thinking that Jessica is the one that betrayed the family.
Yeah, that was a little too
swearing
much.
revenge on her, and they kind of axed that whole thing from part 1, and
so
it kind of naturally got axed from part 2 as well. Yeah, which is fine,
Yeah.
All right, spoiler wise,
what did you guys think about the knife fights?
Oh.
I said as much earlier. I think the choreography was improved on part 1 for sure. Is there? Anna and I had this conversation, I think, almost like a day or two after we watched the movie. Beyond, obviously, Paul versus Fade, is there another big, like, one-on-one duel at some point?
I mean, I would say, like, the Fade versus the Atreides.
The 3 slaves.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the gladiators.
Yeah.
The arena sequence.
Which, like, when you add, like, the setting and everything, like, was pretty incredible.
Setting and cinematography.
And the fact that, like,
was just,
he's supposed to be drugged, and he's not drugged, and, like...
He's not.
But, like, it's like an interesting like view on Fade because he's like he could have easily like backed off and be like, oh no, this is not going by the rules, and he's like, no, I want to do this, like I want to kill them like how they're
it's
as they are.
It's because he's got a kink. He's fucking weird.
Yeah, and he like
weird,
wants to be the one to do it.
Fade is not like an inherently unhated like I don't know what I'm trying to say. I think Fade is a more interesting character than the rest of the Harkonnens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's not inherently like bad. Like he kind of sucks, obviously.
I mean,
he
like kills all his like employees and stuff.
That's a little.
Hey, you say something out of line, I'm cutting your throat. You're done. I'm going to feed you to
I guess that's.
I'm going to feed you to these people.
But he's a little more complex than the other versions.
I'm blurring the lines a little bit between the movie and the book.
Yeah.
I feel like they kind of did that to make it clear that like, oh no, you're not supposed to like this guy at all. Like obviously he's weird looking and shit, but like also he sucks too. That's true. That's a good point. In the book, I think he's a little bit more nuanced, I think, than they have him here. But I guess I'm more thinking about like the fact that like when he's dueling Paul, even at the end, like, may thy knife chip and shatter, he's doing shit like where it's just like he's not just being like he's trying to be tricksy in the book.
Yeah.
And in the movie he's just like a fair fight.
Yeah, he's less of a cheater.
Shit.
Yeah, he's less of a cheater.
I think that's the sort of thing where even in the arena, it's kind of the same thing where it's just like, I like just fighting straight up.
Yeah,
like,
he like turns off his shield. He like lets the guards
just
like kind
doing
of
this
back
for
up.
the sport of it. Like it's like I want to show that I'm fucking legit. I'm also a fucking weirdo and I'll kill people and shit. But
yeah, and do weird sex things with the Gom Jabbar.
With the Gom Jabbar for sure. That's in the director's cut. That's the Denny's cut.
What am I doing in this hallway? Oh,
that's the rated R cut. All right, It's not the director's cut. It's the rated R cut.
I haven't seen these rooms before. Do you want to show me them? Yeah, okay. I was fanning myself watching this movie,
and then right afterwards, she's like, "The bloodline has been secured."
I had a girl. We're having a female. Yeah, he's sexually vulnerable. Yeah,
he's psychotic, but he's sexually vulnerable. That's someone's like Tinder profile.
You know what's it's funny because the man, like the entire movie, he's portrayed as this like unhinged, murderous fucking guy,
Yeah.
And it just it elevates the Bene Gesserit's like control and all of that, right? Because I mean, she's fucking walking around and shit, and just completely just dismantled this guy that is supposed to be the scariest guy in the whole movie.
Right.
You know, really and truly, the scariest person is Benny Bay. You know, and
the Bene Gesserit have the control. That's kind of the whole thing, right?
That's the whole thing, exactly. It's cool. It's cool. Anyways,
Gurney's back. Gurney
is back.
That's true.
Gurney's back.
We got a little Balicet scene, I think, in this one. We didn't really get that in the first one, so.
Yeah.
Also, those laser beams.
He likes the atomics. Those laser beams were... The whole weapon system was just like so cool.
The atomics were
and then I think
it's interesting because like they find these atomics, and these atomics are like, well, you know, we made atomics back in 1940, you know, and like for some like
we
these
just kept them around.
Like we have 92 atomics, and they're like, oh. You know, that's real power. Well, fuck, you got laser beams that like cut through rock and cut through these metal ships and all this and that. And
you got claymores though.
And you have fucking claymores and you got shields.
The Fremen don't have claymores. The Sardaukar.
That's true. No claymores for them.
Yeah, the Fremen are just using like the teeth of these giant worms, you know, for their knives.
Well, yeah, and your desert power.
And you're telling me that the thing that really changes the thing that changes the outcome of this whole situation are these old school bombs.
Atomics.
Well, I think it's like where you aim it at, right? Because like Paul is like, I will blow up the spice. I'm not gonna destroy your ships. I'm not gonna like destroy my enemies. I will blow up the spice because this is the only planet in the universe that has spice, and without spice, I know that you won't travel and do your things, and like you'll disrupt the entire universe.
Everything. Yeah.
So,
and then he blows up the mountains.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Fade's like, I'm after everyone, but Paul's willing to blow up like the whole entire desert.
Yeah, with his atomics.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will destroy all the spice. Power over spice.
He who controls the thing.
Oh, shit.
Has the power over the spice.
Oh, that was good.
That was pretty good.
That was really good.
That scene when they take over the Emperor's ship and everything was just one of the coolest scenes.
They
come in on the worms. Well, then they come in on the worms.
And then Paul like walks in and just like stabs that fat fuck in his neck. Remember that? Yeah. He just walks in and just like sticks his knife right in his neck. Done.
And he's like, "Hello, grandfather." Blah.
Done.
You die like an animal, or whatever he says.
And like in the book, wasn't he like suffocating under his own weight? Like it crushed his lungs and broke his back whenever they cut his
and it wasn't
levitation
fully him.
thing.
I think Aleia played a role.
Aleia killed him, right?
Yeah. She was basically the one who killed him.
Grandfather. Yeah, and she's like all like the creepy kid.
Yeah.
Atreides Gom Jabbar. Yeah.
Anyways, I really like that last scene when we see the Vladimir Harkonnen meet his demise. I really enjoyed that.
I think it was a good change having Paul being the one to deal with fatal blow. Like obviously, we're not going to have an unborn fetus delivering the final blow.
Let's just do it.
But
I think it just makes it more personal, you know? Like,
sure.
It feels like you killed my father, I will kill you. You know, like that.
And it was interesting because it was really, I guess because he took from the water of life and everything else at that point, it was kind of cold. That was cold too.
Yeah, he was just like, boom.
It was not emotional or anything else. It was just very matter of fact. You know, I'm marching in here. Boom, you're done. And
it was like
that's that.
He didn't get like that. I didn't get the sense that like he enjoyed it or like you got some kind of satisfaction from it. He's like, I'm just gonna do this.
Yeah, it's like it's going to be done because
necessary.
Exactly, it's necessary. And it's interesting that he becomes a person of necessity. When he spends a large part of part one and part two being an emotional individual, and it's interesting that the knowledge of the future and the past and everything else it strips him of that emotionality and changes him to a person of necessity. I think it's I don't know.
Yeah,
it's pretty interesting. I think it's a really interesting transition. Then we're talking again about Paul. Fuck Paul. We ain't talking about Paul anymore. Can we talk about Javier Bardem? Can we talk about him?
Still God.
The Mahdi is so humble.
Probably the funniest character in the movie.
I think so. I think he's like almost single-handedly like the source of levity.
Yeah.
Like, and even then, like it almost kind of gets perverted by the end, where it's just like, oh no, he's just a true believer.
Yeah. I mean, there's some good memes about him.
When it's right. Yeah, but it's not as funny when like Paul is kind of embracing the same role. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes him. I don't know if it necessarily makes him tragic, but it makes him.
He fully buys into it, right?
Just bastardizes the I don't know. It perverts the levity that he brought. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, yeah. And I think that's to like really emphasize this Messiah complex. Like he's like, oh yeah, of course he would do this way. And like obviously Paul's demonstrated things like we didn't talk too much about it, but like Paul rides the worm as like the biggest worm they've ever seen, and he knows the way of the Fremen. And like, imagine like when you travel to a different place and you're like, wow, I'm like super out of it. I don't know the language. Like, I don't know the customs and everything. And you're like a semester in, like, cause Paul basically does like a semester abroad and he's like, I'm the fucking Fremen. Like, I'm it. He like does a semester abroad in Arrakis and he's just like,
it's kind of like when I went to Puerto Rico. This is the land of my people.
You're like, I'm an island man. You're like, don't come to anyone else. Like, come to me. I know this island. I am the island. Like that's basically what Paul becomes in 6 months. But Stilgar like feels into that. He's like the hype man at a certain point. And they do it to great comedic effect, for not like a necessarily comedic movie.
Florence Pugh is also chilling. She's a chilling character.
Oh yeah, the Princess Irulan.
Bene Gesserit trained.
Yeah,
she's an objective person as well.
Yeah, she's the recorder of history in a way.
The recorder of history, and she's a person that lacks. She was born into a role, and she serves this role and her purpose, and I don't know. I think that viewing yourself as a role strips you of the personality of a person, right? Like,
yeah, she's like, I'm the princess, I'm the Bene Gesserit, and that's who I am. That's like my whole thing.
That's my whole thing, right? And so, okay, I need to marry Paul. That's my purpose. I will marry Paul, and that's what I will do.
It's like, I will save my father's life, and buy into his kingdom.
My purpose,
okay,
right? Yeah. And it. I don't know. I think a theme of this film, or both the films, or maybe just the Dune in general, is the sacrifice of oneself to serve a purpose. Okay. I think that might be a thematic element for this movie, because that's kind of what I got. You have a very sensitive boy coming into the world of Arrakis, and he is stripped of personality, of personal gain, and this and that, and he is reduced down to his purpose by the end of the movie. Like, this is the role that you are given. This is the role that you will serve, and that's kind of it's the hand you're dealt, and that's what you're doing. Same thing with the princess, and she takes it with much more grace than he does because she's already accepted it, so she's just, Paul says I will marry you, and well, I guess I'm marrying Paul, she doesn't seem to care that this is what's going on. Like she knows that's what was going to.
She wants her dad to live. I guess that's pretty.
Yeah,
much
it's
it,
like you have your own motives.
At the same time, I think she's kind of indifferent to her father. I think she strikes me as an indifferent person. She strikes me as the princess of the known universe. She doesn't strike me as the person.
The daughter,
does it make sense?
Or the person. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, she just so anyways, who else do we have? Dave Bautista licking the boots.
I mean,
Bautista doesn't. Yeah, he's not as much in this film.
I mean, we're probably at a point where we could probably start to wind down on all the spoilers and stuff. I think we've hit the major characters. I think Paul, Chani, Jessica,
Stilgar,
Leah to do.
Yeah.
Stilgar, fade a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe by virtue of talking about Lady Margot. But
Lady Margot.
I don't know. Why don't we take this at a point? We're well into it. Why don't we just start talking general spoiler stuff, and then we'll wrap it up. I mean, let's do it in the process of wrapping up. What are the spoiler things we probably haven't touched on yet?
Claymores, chrome balls on fire.
Okay.
Well, those are things that have stood out already, but what other things maybe? I feel like, for me, I guess as an example, we've touched on it a little bit. The worm riding stuff, I think was just awesome. I think the sequence of Paul's first ride was really well done. That was really cool. But I think what was fucking amazing was the moment where the Emperor's like, oh, they won't attack us. There is a storm going on. And then, you have these everyone's riding a worm through the storm. And it's just this awesome, amazing sequence. I just think visually
is incredible.
To circle back to that, the visual effects weren't good enough. You know what? Fuck you. Fuck you too. You're a popcorn throwing fish.
Goddamn good.
Fuck off.
Fuck off is what I say. Anyway, I thought that was incredible. I think it's the center, because I think the vinyl is a trifold thing, and that's the centerpiece. Fucking the
three worms. Yeah.
God. Just fucking. That's so awesome. That's so cool.
The fact that just the whole idea of him breaching. The idea is that the rock formation saves, we're protected because of the rock formation. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he breaches the rock formation with the family's atomics to not only let the worms in, but let the storm in too.
They time it with the storm.
Awesome. It's so fucking cool. All that is so cool. All of it.
Yeah.
I feel like this is those people. They don't know what's going on. The fucking bombs went off, and
even the starter car, the baddest dudes in the galaxy. They're just it's a worm. I don't know.
They're fucking.
They're nothing.
What are the Power Rangers? Putty people.
Yeah,
they're putty people. That's the point.
Putty people. That's exactly what they are.
Yeah.
Man,
that seemed like the Lord of the Rings level, just kind of epic battle war. Just this is cinema. We are back. We are back to cinema.
Cool. It is so cool.
I might be tapped. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know. I'm sure there's plenty other.
Oh, how about Chani shooting that fucking guy with the rocket?
That was sick. Well, that whole sequence was cool.
How they're hiding behind the shadow with the legs.
I feel I was
stopping the spice production. Yeah,
but that's the point where it's it jumps a little bit in time, and Paul is he knows what he's doing at that point. He's pretty good at this point. Yeah, that whole thing of just destroying the spice miner was cool. That was awesome.
Oh, and then the sequence after where he gets his name of Muad'Dib. What do you call the desert mouse? Right. Oh, the Muad'Dib. The Muad'Dib. That's a powerful name.
He went from Usul, the base of the pillar.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like like I said, the first movie did so much world building. This one did all the world building in terms of building the Fremen culture and the religion and everything. Like it was kind of very concentrated in a different way, but very effectively. Like just obviously in service of Paul's journey from fallen son to hero leader Muad'Dib,
Usul,
Mahdi, Lisan al-Gaib, Kwisatz Haderach.
Oh, the fucking cool words. Oh, yeah.
Like I said, all of the things. Really is some Daenerys.
How about that crazy bitch that just fucking let that worm jump up on her? And like she's like, oh, let me show you how to capture a worm. She's like fucking slapping the ground,
the baby worm,
and then I catch the worm. You crazy bitch! What the fuck are you doing?
She knew what she was doing.
She's supposed to be doing.
She knew what she was doing. She got
she's like, oh, let me, and then I'm gonna take this fucking, I'm gonna fucking walk around, and I'm gonna put this worm in water. Pooh, and she drowns the fucking worm.
The worm.
She gets the water of life out of that. Yeah.
That bitch is crazy. Fucking catching the worm. That worm was the size of her. It jumped out of the ground and wrapped around her body.
Oh, but that's a baby. That's a baby. It's like a new worm.
She's fucking nuts. She's fucking slapping that ground and shit. Come at me, fucking worm.
She does like the sounds and everything.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
But, so the worm, so like kind of like getting into the world.
The whole movie got me worked up.
But that reminds me of like the world of the ecology of Arrakis or Dune. Like the worms built the planet. So like apparently Dune was not always like a desert planet completely. And then like the worms and like their larval stages, the sand trouts, like came in and like created an entire desert.
Like
and people have been
terraformed it?
trying to and people have been trying to replicate that in other worlds to get spice going because the worms create lead to the spice, and that you can't have spice without the worms.
Wow,
essentially,
that lady's breeding some fucking worms. She's nuts. She's fucking crazy. And then the mom shows up. Oh, can we talk about Jessica's like sandworm pod? They call it I know they call it the thing where you carry the royalty in the fucking thing. What's it called?
Yeah.
It's called I forget. Starts with a P.
Kind of carriage.
Yeah. There's a vocabulary word there, but I can't think of it. Anyways, that's fucking cool. It's like a sports car looking thing, and she's riding on top of that worm, and then she shows up. She says, "My son's gonna come in here, and you're gonna give him that water." And
he kind of commands it.
Is that it?
Something like that. Yeah, I think so. Pelican.
Yeah.
And
Pelicans?
Pelican?
National Basketball Association team, New Orleans Pelicans?
I don't know.
No,
but then Jessica shows up. You're gonna give my son that water. She goes, "Oh, we can't give him that. You will give my son that water." And she talks in that voice.
Let him try. The voice. Every time the voice is used, the sound design alone is just like what'd you say? Yes, of course.
It's like
silence.
Yes,
oh, dude. I'm sure we've talked about this.
We talked it because it was in the trailer. It was in like the.
Did we talk about the siege when he starts like, your grandfather lost his eye fighting this person, blah 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 blah, and the guy's like, holy shit, he's like shitting himself talking to Paul. Like, when you try to get me, you're not gonna try to get me because there's a chance that I'm who I say I am. And he just like, that guy's just like, he went from badass because he looked like a pretty big badass Fremen, and he was just stripped bare in front of fucking Paul. Paul stripped him bare, and he didn't know what to do. He was like, "Oh, Galib, I'm done," And dude, that sequence when he was just goosebumps. That was the best. Oh, and then when Paul's on top of the mountain. When Paul says,
"Oh yeah, that's a good moment." Yeah.
Oh, dude. What else got me excited? Leah Sadu got me excited.
Well, we know that. You made that abundantly clear, good sir.
The knife fight. Both the knife fights were cool. The gladiator knife fight and Paul's knife fight.
The duel.
Yeah, that was pretty good. When Paul stomps his foot at the Emperor to kiss my fucking ring.
Kiss my foot. Or yeah, kiss the ring, yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
That was fucking cool. So many cool moments in this movie. We can move on now. Let's move on. Let's conclude this podcast. I'm sorry. I can keep going. I mean, honestly.
It's a cool movie.
I know that you're fully capable of it. You know, and honestly, in a vacuum, I think I probably could too, but I think I have to take pity on our listeners and call it at a certain point. And
What
say,
was your
all right,
coolest
maybe
moment? Let's just recap our coolest moment. What's your coolest moment?
All right, that's maybe a good way to end
Enrique,
it.
coolest moment.
I think I can vibe with that.
I think it's taking over the Emperor's troops. Like, just get the sandworms. Like, it's all your knowledge and everything. Like, just coming in, and you're riding the worms. You're taking the storm. You're blowing up ships, and you just
using family
you've won.
atomics, the
You've
whole
won.
nine, the battle sequence. You like that?
Yeah.
That final war battle sequence.
That was epic. It's just like, we won. We did this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Favorite part, Colton?
Probably Leia's to do. Oh no, that's yours. I'm sorry.
We can have the same moment. That was pretty good.
I think it's the arrival of the forces. I don't know if it's exactly what Enrique is saying, but just the sandworms just at the end,
It's
and
just
then
like
the Emperor's
so epic.
like oh, we're safe here, we'll be fine, and then just fucking absolutely wrecked. I think that just visually and everything was just everything kind of coming together, and like this the chef's kiss kind of moment for me. So
Yeah.
I think my favorite moment was
oh, we know.
Lisa do. No. The I think my favorite moment was when he walks after Paul takes the water of life and then walks in and just puts his commanding the commanding moment of him taking control of
yeah, like when he goes, that's
his
pretty good.
big long speech where he's crouched down in the
Right.
middle of all of them, you know,
Yeah.
and
that was awesome.
yeah, it was really good.
I would have to, I could revisit. Like I need a second viewing. It's been now over a week for me. I need a second viewing. The details are escaping me here and there. Obviously, we've been here for a while, but I think I'd like another chance to reevaluate this movie. Not because I think it's going to be like, oh, I didn't like it.
Oh, it's
now
really
I think
shit.
It's going to be good,
Right.
But like, I think I just need to take
Right,
it in
just experience
like
it
another
again,
time, and like and usually if there's a movie I like, the second time is where I really like click into everything. The first time is just reacting. You know what I mean? It's like the whole way through, and then the second time is looking forward to those moments, and then kind of maybe not picking up on things you missed the first time and stuff like that. I just think that this is a movie that is clearly very deep. Clearly, a lot went into the making of it. I think that a second viewing for me is gonna deliver in the way that I think I want it to. So, and I'd love to do IMAX for the second viewing. So, yeah, if I can make it happen anyway.
All right, there we go.
Have we done it? Have we done it?
Dune.
At long last,
Dune
have we
Part
done it?
2.
Dune.
Part 2.
Finally, at long last.
The end of the conversation for now. Perhaps there will be a Dune Part 3, a Dune Messiah, however they want to title it. I think at this point, because of the way it's playing, I think that it's going to happen. I think
Denny says he wants to like
in tow.
He does want to make
wants
the
to do
third
it.
one.
He wants,
but
to do
it sounds
yeah.
like they're like gonna take their time, which I'm okay with. Like
I think there's a built-in time jump in the book, which I think that they could. I don't think they'll have to strictly adhere to.
Right? And it would be a little
make
tough
it sooner. Yeah, and I also think
because Anya Taylor-Joy would age as the movie ages too.
And I just think even like Timothée Chalamet's like, I don't think he's gonna look that different in like 10 years.
Right, that's the thing. It's like, is he gonna look
he's gonna look that different?
like a 40-year-old?
He's got a baby face. He's gonna look. He's gonna look like 18 for a long time. I think.
Sorry, we got prosthetics.
Timmy.
So, old Timmy. So yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. I'll obviously check back in. Obviously, as we get Dune updates, it was a weird sort of thing where we recorded the first, we recorded the episode on the first Dune, on Dune Part 1, and it was at that time we had literally just gotten in the news that like Part 2 is on the way. Rest assured, like more is to come, and we haven't arrived at that point yet. And I think obviously, as we said, we're okay if this is it. but it is clear that this was built with the intention of there being at least a little bit more to the story.
Right.
I mean, the way that it ends with the Holy War begins feels
to properly finish.
Well, I want to see that. Yeah. So I think that a number 3 is got to be happening. It's got to be doing well enough that it would be insane to not greenlight it. So hopefully it happens sooner rather than later, and we have kind of that, the peace of mind, I guess, that comes with it. But
can't wait for the weird shit that happens.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we'll see if they temper the weird shit or if they just embrace it.
I feel like some things you have to do. It's just like the story
maybe
calls for it.
I don't know enough to say whether that's true or not. So
you kind of need some of the weird
Does he
shit.
turn into a worm in the third book?
Not in this. Well, I'm just gonna say no.
Okay.
All right. Let us call it there for Dune Part 2. Officially. Calling it there. I'm going to go ahead and just let's move on to catching up. Let's move on to catching up, guys. So who wants to start here in terms of catching up? Henrique, we haven't had a proper episode with you on to fill us in on the things you've obviously written
sure.
and I guess recorded in, I guess, and stuff. But yeah, let's start with you. What do you got for us?
Okay. Sure. I'll try to keep it brief. So I missed you all while I was doing vacation earlier this year. So I think the big one was going to Mexico, specifically Mexico City for a while, which I highly recommend anyone who would even think about, like, maybe I want to go there. Like, it's depending on where you go. Obviously, it's like any like big city, perfectly safe. Like, you can have a great time. You can really enjoy amazing food, amazing culture, just history. We ate really well. We walked around everything. Like, we went to pyramids. We did all the things. And then we spent some time in a resort too on the Cancun, like Riviera Maya side, which is obviously like where the big like tourist like hub is. But I would say if you do more than one Mexico trip, especially, like, don't stick just in Cancun. Like, it's a great, like, beautiful beaches and great time, but like, check out some other parts of the country because it's really incredible, especially the food scene. I think Mexico City is probably the best food city I think we've been to, like, in the world that we've traveled. So top tier food. So just did things that we've done. So I mentioned how we watched the Dune, like, David Lynch movie, been reading some of the Dune books. And then this will be, I guess, the anime corner section of what I've been up to, because it's mainly just anime. So I mentioned Blue Eyed Samurai, so I definitely recommend that. And I think you talked about it.
I did.
So a couple other ones that are pretty.
Thank you for the recommendation, by the way. Just throwing that out.
Yes.
I don't think I would have watched it. I think you were the extra push that I needed. So
it sounds like it was a worthy push. Cause,
it was.
Yeah. So Andrew, Blue Eye Samurai.
Haven't seen it yet. I hear high recommendations.
Very good.
Colton watched an anime before I watched an anime.
You got 2 recommendations right here. So other anime stuff you might want to get into. So we went to the theaters actually to watch Demon Slayer because they were doing the next. They recapped the end of the last season, which was the Swordsmith Village arc, and they did the season premiere of the next season, which is the Hashira training arc. And
how far behind
I think this might be the second to last season. I think there's only 2 more seasons left, and like, Eastline has all the manga and has read them all, and she's like, things are gonna really pick up, and it's gonna get brutal and fast.
Man, I can't remember.
What have you watched last? Like, where were you at in Demon Slayer?
Demon Slayer. They go to the city, right?
Like, you watched the train arc, the moving train,
and then they go to the city.
You did the entertainment district.
I think so. That was
Did you finish that one?
I think so.
Okay, there's like a big fight at the end, obviously. Like a really big fight. Like talking about like some of the best animation.
No, maybe I haven't seen that.
Put a screen. Okay.
Maybe I haven't seen that part then.
The ending of that season has like some of the best animation I've ever seen. And then the next season is the Swordsmith Village arc, which was good. like overall, there was some things that I liked, some things that I probably didn't like.
Is this on Crunchyroll or is it on Netflix?
I think the Swordsmith Village arc might be on Netflix now.
Okay.
And then the next season is the Hashira training arc.
Okay.
So
yeah, I'm behind. I need to catch up.
We saw that in theaters, and I will say, without getting too into it, we had like 99% of the audience was fine, and we just had like one person. It wasn't even the people he was with. It was one person who just like kept talking, kept getting up, kept just like doing shit.
What's wrong with the people?
And it was
that
like
you go see movies
so
with?
annoying.
That's awful.
And I'm just like, why? Like he would literally talk like in full voice, like volume during the thing, and then he would leave and then come back, and I'm like, what are you doing? This is like a 1.5 hour thing. Like, why do you need to pee 4 times? Like, if you need to pee that many times, like whatever. But like then don't come back and start talking when you're there. Like every time he left, I was like, oh, thank God, he's gone. So
he came back every time.
And then I'm like, oh God, he's back. Like, what are you doing? You missed like a quarter of the show, but whatever. Demon Slayer is good, and it's picking up. I assume it's gonna start again in a couple weeks. We watched some Aggretsuko, which is like the like it's like in line with the Hello Kitty stuff, but this is a cat. I don't know if have you all like heard of this person?
No.
This character. So she's a cat.
Sure, I don't think so.
Sanrio does like an anime for her essentially. It's on Netflix, and she is this little cat who's like super cute and cuddly, and when she gets really frustrated with the world, she just goes to karaoke and just sings death metal and just like lets it all out.
That sounds pretty cool.
It's pretty awesome. And so we're a couple seasons into that. I think Easton's seen more of it than I have. We started a new series because we're like, we just need to start like a new thing. We don't have any current anime otherwise that we're going with. There's one called Classroom of the Elite, and it is literally that. It's actually pretty good so far, but it's essentially like high school kids who are in this like the best high school in Japan. Like from here, you'll get into the best colleges and get into the best jobs. And they have this weird system where like you get points, which are money currency every month based on your value. And then all the students are like, oh, sweet, we have 100,000 points and we spend it all. We buy some Xboxes and new shoes and clothes and stuff. And then next month comes around, they get no money because they were slacking off and just like falling asleep in class. And the teacher's like, well, you're basically worthless because you did nothing for the past month. So you get no points and now no dollars. So now it becomes like a whole competitive thing. So sounds very Japanese, and I'm all about it. Otherwise, we watched one. Also, this one I think is actually one that either of you might enjoy. It's called Zom 100. It's a zombie show. So like zombie apocalypse, and the main character is this person who was in a 9-to-5, who was just like the worst job. Like his boss degraded him. He was just like getting bogged down by the like business and like the work-life machine. And then a zombie apocalypse happens, and he's like, oh, I have an opportunity to live and like enjoy my life. So he makes a list of 100 things he wants to do before he becomes a zombie. And the show is just like him trying to reach those 100 things. And it's like a much more fun version of The Walking Dead. Do you remember that one?
I do remember that.
We talked about it and its many spinoffs quite recently.
Yeah. So I would definitely recommend that one. Like there's some dark parts of it, but generally it's like very fun. It's like very bloody, but they make the blood look kind of like paintball, like different colors. So it's less gruesome in a way. But Zom 100 I would definitely recommend. And that's the anime corner with me. That's what I got.
Right.
Otherwise, I've just been working a crap ton. And then the time that I otherwise have off, building some Legos. How
many pieces?
BD1.
How many pieces does BD1 consist of?
BD1's like 1,000 something.
Okay. That's good.
The
That's
Millennium
good. That's good
Falcon is like 1,500 or so, and then we're working on a replica Hogwarts castle, which is pretty big.
That's gotta be expensive.
That's a tough one. That's like 2,600, like really tiny little pieces. So that one's gonna take a while. So
that sounds cool. I need to get a
but it's like a fun thing to do. You know,
I want to get a Lego.
Just build Lego.
I got a TIE fighter over here. You can't see it; it's out of view. But I could hold on. Give me 1 second.
Oh, that thing really moves.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're doing. Poe Dameron. Mr. Poe Dameron, I see what you're saying. Anyway.
Yeah.
Noises.
So anime Legos and work. That's mostly it.
Very good. All right. Very cool.
I started a show.
Okay. Is it Halo?
No, I haven't started
Halo season
that
2?
one.
Oh.
No,
It's almost over at this point, man. You were supposed to take the dive on.
I haven't taken the dive yet. I've been waiting.
All right, what have you started?
I started a little show called Shogun.
Oh, a few episodes in, right?
It is a few episodes in.
Have aired. I don't know how far you are.
I am 2 episodes in.
Okay, and
I think it's really cool. I think it's really well done.
Okay.
I think the cinematography is a little obnoxious. Me personally, it seems like it seems like they perpetually have like a fucking fish lens on there. You know what I mean? Like to where it's like
a fisheye kind of perspective or whatever.
Yeah, it's just kind of like a blown out kind of fucking lens that they shoot the entire show with. So I think that's a little obnoxious, but I do think it's really well done. So
Okay.
And it might get better. That was like the pilot, you know what I mean? It's a 2-episode premiere, I think it is what it was. I've seen a couple of clips beyond where I'm at, and I'm really excited to keep watching it. I think
it's on my list. I mean, we were fucking jazzed
same.
Obviously, when we talked about the trailers, so we're not to jump ahead to my stuff. We're very much in the midst of like trying to last minute push and watch all the Oscar movies that we can before the Oscars themselves happen.
Yeah,
which is very soon. But I think Shogun is definitely like high on my list of things to
it's pretty fucking cool.
Very soon,
it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll put it to you this way. There's like a little tidbit. Just a little tidbit. A guy puts another guy in a boiling pot of water all night.
Oh shit!
And the guy, obviously, like he fucking like his skin starts to fucking melt, right?
Sure.
And he ends up killing himself by bashing his head against the side of the fucking pot.
So it's pretty brutal.
It's incredibly fucking brutal. It's super fucking brutal. And like the people that live in the town, because like this guy's like, it's like public execution by death by pot, right? So like he's on display in the middle of the town, and all the people that are in the town, like they're trying to sleep in the night and stuff, but they're covering their ears because this guy's fucking screaming out of his mind because his skin is melting and shit. It's fucking wild. It's fucking wild. So that's Shogun.
Right. Be prepared.
Other than that, I've spent a lot of time thinking about Dune. And
just
we can tell.
And Paul, I've been thinking about Paul a lot.
I think you've been thinking about another character besides Paul, but what do I know?
And maybe a little bit of Margot. I've been thinking about Margot a little bit. I played some. I'm in the middle of building my first hand of Magic cards, which is cool. And the baby has 2 front teeth now.
The baby
just popped out today. He had a double ear infection, but that's since been cured, so that's good.
It's a 0 ear infection. Yeah.
Yeah. And baby B's just doing his own thing. Like he's all about it. He's real into Bluey right now. And
he seems like a very happy boy.
I
only see obviously what you curate and send, but he seems very happy.
He's a very happy baby. And like I say, we started like his favorite's still Spider-Man and Friends, you know. but
Yeah.
like
Good taste.
like we need to diversify a little bit, right? So we exposed him to Bluey, and
Bluey's so good.
Bluey's fucking good.
Bluey's
like
so good.
low key, like if you're drunk one night and like you just want to watch a cartoon that doesn't include murder and
Something
stuff,
lighthearted.
yeah, turn on some fucking Bluey,
murder in
dude.
Bluey.
Turn on some Bluey.
All right. I wasn't sure, but yeah,
Bluey's
okay,
got a
that
total
helps.
banger soundtrack. The cast is awesome. It's New Zealand shit, so like the comedy and whatnot, like it's still comedic, even though it's like a little kid movie. Episodes are bite sized, like they're like 10, 15 minutes at most. Blue, like, yeah, and it's a baby show. Okay, so like maybe it's a little weird if like you just tune into fucking Bluey, but
It helps when you have
you know what?
little child in the
just
room.
tune
and
into
you're just
fucking
like,
Bluey because it's fucking
It's
good.
Bluey.
Everyone's
Some
having a good
episodes,
time.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Some episodes, dude, make me tear up a little bit. Like they're fucking good.
Dude.
Yeah.
It's good
The
stuff.
little that I've seen, I'm just like, this is what kids should be watching.
It's really fucking good. And aside from that, I've got a lot of audible thing. Oh, I've been watching a lot of Jeopardy. We watch Jeopardy every night. I watch the Champions.
Love some Jeopardy. Well, so how do you guys watch Jeopardy? Because I want to watch the tournament of champions, and it doesn't seem like it's streaming. So
Oh yeah. So we watch it. We get home.
Stream it on cable?
We watch. We have YouTube. We have YouTube cable or whatever. You know, YouTube Live
yeah,
TV.
so it's probably on there.
And we
That makes
watch
sense.
every night. We get home, cook dinner. And while dinner's cooking, we're either cooking dinner while Wheel of Fortune's on, or eating dinner. And then by the time we're like definitely eating dinner, Jeopardy's on, and I generally try to watch Jeopardy. We generally watch it every night. So we watch the Tournament of Champions. It's pretty good. Well, no, I don't think it's the Tournament of Champions yet. Ike was on there. Anyways, we've been watching a lot of Jeopardy. It's been fun watching Jeopardy. It's pretty cool. I like Jeopardy. I'm getting better at Wheel of Fortune. It's hard when you don't spell very well. But you know, I'm getting better at it.
They also have some like stupid fucking phrases. They're like, it's a phrase, and it's like no one's ever said that in the fucking world. Like you just made that hard because this is a game show and you don't want people to win money. Like you're making shit up at this point.
Yeah, that happens occasionally for sure.
Not always. Sometimes it's pretty reasonable. Sometimes it's mythological hero Aeschylus, which is not an acceptable answer according to Pat. But
Fucking Pat. Pat's fucking spicy too, though. But
I think because he's nearing the end, it doesn't fucking matter.
No.
Like he's done. He can do whatever he wants at this
Pat
point.
comes in talking shit to the contestants. Pat's fucking spicy. And
It's like, oh, you're a fucking idiot. You missed that one, huh?
he's fucking funny. Pat's a real good game show host. That's what I'll say. And like you say, he's at the end of his career, so he didn't really much give a shit. And sometimes you get some stupid contest. Like there was one contestant, I swear to God,
You're
they
a
were
real
drunk.
dumbass bitch, aren't you?
They're just they were drunk, and he's just calling them out. Oh, it's fucking funny.
Been juicing a little bit for this game, huh?
So I don't know what you're thinking, but that's definitely not it. Fucking Pat. And I think that's about it. Really.
Very good. Very good. Very good. All right. I have a few things. I'm gonna try to not spend too much time here. So the Oscars, I guess, full disclosure, the Oscars are very soon. So Anna and I have been trying to get through as many Oscars nominated movies, certainly the best pictures we've been trying to prioritize, as well as some of the other ones, the acting categories and stuff. So we've made a mission of this current weekend that we're in to watch as much as we can before the Oscars telecast. So the things that we've watched so far, there's probably a good chance I'll expand on these in the future. So I'm going to just kind of put these as a placeholder and say a little piece on them before I move on. We've watched Rustin, which is on Netflix, which is a Coleman Domingo led movie about Bayard Rustin, who was a civil rights activist in the 60s, an openly gay black man who was kind of shunted to the side as things were happening, but he was kind of largely responsible for the march on Washington, D.C. and I forget should probably know the exact year, but I think 65 is what my brain is saying, but 63, August 28th, 1963. And I was indeed wrong. I was off by a couple of years. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great. I thought it was enjoyable. A very good lead performance by Colman Domingo, who's nominated for Best Actor for his role in that. Yeah, it's on Netflix. Very easy to stream, not too long. Very breezy, kind of jumps all over the place a little bit in terms of time setting and stuff like that. It's a little frenetic, but I think that I had a decent enough time with it. It's certainly worth recommending. Doesn't change my year in review or anything like that in terms of quality, but throwing it out there. Also watch The Color Purple, which is now streaming on on Max, and this is the Dune musical one. To be clear, there's obviously an 80s version from Steven Spielberg. This is the musical one. I didn't love the first half. I thought the second half was much better. It got better as I think it got less of as it turned into less of a musical overall. And that was ultimately my biggest fault with it. Was it is a thematic movie that thematically doesn't really make sense for a musical, and the way they handled it in terms of it being a musical was very fucking weird, I thought, where it's a kind of dark movie thematically, and it's like a bunch of weird happy-go-lucky songs, and it's just like, this doesn't fit the vibe at all. And I thought that was just very jarring. And it got less, it did less of that in the second half, and it kind of felt like the movie was best when it wasn't a musical. When it was a musical, it like took away from the movie, and that's obviously not what you want from a musical. But it's not, I guess, a crazy thought for something that was not originally a musical, based on a book, adapted into a movie. I haven't seen the Spielberg one, but I have to imagine that it probably plays better because it makes more sense to not be a musical. So I do want to watch it. I think we will watch that at some point in the near future, but haven't done it yet. We are almost done with this movie, so I feel like I might as well throw it out there. Nyad, also on Netflix, nominated in a couple categories. I think Annette Bening for Best Actress and Jodie Foster for Best Supporting Actress. It's a movie about a crazy lady. No, that's not entirely true. It's a movie about Diana Nyad, who is a real life swimmer who had this crazy idea of what if I swam from Cuba to the Keys in Florida?
Jesus Christ.
And so it's kind of about her journey to doing it when she's like 60 years old. And it's fairly intense, more intense than I expected, because like she's like someone with sharks and jellyfish and shit. It's like a biopic sort of sportsy thing, but I'm enjoying it more than I expected it to. I thought it would be kind of not interesting, but it is a bit more interesting than I anticipated it would be. That said, I have about a half hour left in it, so I don't know. I don't know how it ends. It's based on like a real life thing, but I don't actually know how it ends. I don't know how the movie itself ends and stuff like that. So that's that. Things that I have finished. The Crown Season 2 I have finished. This was the last of the seasons of The Crown with the original cast of Claire Foy, Matt Smith, Vanessa Kirby, Invisible Woman herself, and others, and many others. Season 2 is great. That cast was really, really fantastic. Jared Harris played the original king, before he died, and Queen Elizabeth takes over. Really, really good. Those first two seasons are just impeccably shot, very interesting, great performances. Every couple seasons they shift the cast because they shift the ages of the characters by a couple decades. So I'm curious to see if the recast throws me off a little bit. But I would definitely recommend at least the first couple seasons of The Crown because those are the ones that I can speak to. Really, really good. Also finished season 1 of Party Down, which I'm in the midst of rewatching the first 2 seasons so that I can go into the new season that they put out last year, which I didn't get to, obviously, in time for our year in review. It's the first time Anna's watching it. We're both really, really enjoying it, I think. We're about halfway through season 2, but season 1 is great. It's the one with mostly the original cast of Adam Scott, Lizzie Kaplan, Jane Lynch is in most of season 1, and then she's not in season 2 because she's moved on to Glee at that point. Ken Marino, others just great. Martin Starr, really, really funny show, awesome show. Would definitely recommend Party Down. Certainly season 1. It's on Stars, which we have through Amazon right now, so it's kind of a pain in the ass to get, but it's worth it if you have it. Celebrity Jeopardy we watched, which we watched it on Hulu. Andrew, you mentioned Jeopardy. I don't know if have you been in on the Celebrity Jeopardy? Did you watch this season?
No, that's the one hosted by the lady, right?
Well, it was Maya Bialik for the first season, and then because they shot it through the strikes, she didn't participate, so they actually got Ken Jennings to do it as well. So Ken has just been hosting all of Jeopardy at this point. So he did Celebrity Jeopardy for this second season. It's worth watching. It's streaming. You can totally stream it. It's shorter. The questions I think are definitely easier, which is good. And I was happy with who won it, to say the least.
Okay.
So I'll leave it at that because I think you would appreciate who won it as well. But I don't want to say anything more because I think that would maybe ruin the fun of it a little bit. But it's a little Celebrity Jeopardies. It's a lot of fun. We finished The Floor as well, which was the Rob Lowe hosted game show on Fox. Had a fun season with that. I think it's 9 episodes. The last episode was a double, like a 2-hour thing. The way that show works is you have, like 80 people up there. Each one has their own special category that they're like experts in. And then they get a chance to duel with each other, and you're trying to take over the floor, the piece of the floor that each person has. So you have 80 pieces of the floor at the beginning, and then by the end, one person has to own all of the floor and kind of have dueled in enough categories that they can win. It was a fun show. It was very entertaining. I enjoyed it. The last episode, the last duel, was a pathetic shit show from one person, so it was a very one-sided kind of finale, which was a bit of a bummer. But I had fun with it overall. Felt like a COVID writer strike show sort of deal. I guess not COVID, but very much writer strike sort of thing where it's like, we don't actually have to really write anything because like half the fucking duels were AI generated images and shit. And it's like, all right, okay. But we enjoyed it. Playing a little bit of Spider-Man 2. I got the symbiote suit, so not
such
as
a
far
good
as Enrique
game.
is. So I got a bit to go. I haven't played in a little bit as of recording this right now. I've been too busy editing the many hours that we've been talking about fucking bullshit.
Hit that 100%.
I'm not at 100%. I would like to get there at some point, but not there yet. And then I've been reading a book. Besides Dune, I've been reading Dune. Obviously, I finished Dune. But I'm reading a book called MCU: The Reign of Marvel Studios by Joanna Robinson, Dave Gonzales, and Gavin Edwards. It's a nonfiction book, basically kind of detailing the behind the scenes of the creation of Marvel Studios, and then kind of detailing throughout the history of Marvel Studios as they've gone through the many phases of the MCU. I think I'm at the Ant-Man chapter, so I've made it through almost the end of phase 2. It's well researched, well written. I think a good just kind of overview of everything. I've certainly like the genesis of Marvel Studios, and there are chapters that kind of go on projects that were never made, like the Runaways and stuff, which I guess later was a Hulu series and stuff. And then a whole chapter on like the Marvel Creative Committee, who were these bastards that just wanted to make everything about women. Women toys don't sell, so we can't have movies with women in them, and like that sort of shit. And it's just these super fucking antiquated, frustrating views in the battles that Kevin Feige and company went through to fight through all that shit. It's interesting. It's a good nonfiction book. It's my breakfast book, I call it. I read it when I eat breakfast in the morning, and then that's the only time I really get to it. Because the afternoons are reserved for Dune, although not anymore. I don't know. We'll see. But it's good. I would recommend it. I rented it from the library, so I didn't buy it, but I rented it from the library. That's it for me. That's it. We're going to try to watch some more Oscars movies. We haven't seen Poor Things yet, but it's streaming now on Hulu, so we're going to try to get to that. Zone of Interest.
Is it on Disney Plus too? I thought I saw something.
It would be on Disney Plus by virtue of their Hulu tab, yes.
Yeah,
so yes,
that seems
you can get it on Disney
weird.
Plus. It's a little weird, but I guess it's not too different from like Disney Plus outside of the USA because there's no Hulu, so they've always had Star, which is giving you access to the rated R sorts of things. Poor Things, Zone of Interest, something else. Oh, we're gonna try to see The Boy and the Heron tomorrow because it's playing at an indie near us. So we're gonna try to see that if we can. I think we're gonna see it in English, which I'm a little hesitant about. I usually like to see the Ghibli's in Japanese first, but
we saw it in English
voice cast. Yeah, so
it has a lot of like famous people like Florence Pugh, Christian Bale, like Dave Bautista. And those folks.
Sure, yeah.
So it was good.
Yeah, I think that'll pretty much round us out. I mean, we probably missed some here and there of kind of more like we didn't watch any of the shorts or the documentaries and stuff, which we pretty much never do, to be fair. But that should cover us for best pictures and acting. I think was kind of our priority in terms of what we wanted to watch. So. We've got some movies to watch over the next pretty short amount of time. Let's put it that way. But yeah. Anyway, all right. I'm gonna wrap it up. Are we ready to wrap it up? Everyone wrapping it up? Do we feel good? Has anyone had any other extra thoughts about Dune they want to bring up right now? Because speak now or forever hold your peace. Until the next episode. Anyway.
I think I've said a lot. I'm okay.
You don't have any other thoughts about Leia Sadu you want to express right now? You'll wait until later?
Yeah, I'll wait till later.
Off the record.
Thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, please spread the word. We are on Patreon, if you didn't know, which you might have known if you'd listened to us. But now you know. Patreon.com/WatchReviewRepeat can get you early access to all of our regular episodes, like Dune Part 2, like other things that we'll talk about in the near future, probably. It'll also get you access to any bonus episodes we work on. We talked about maybe doing a Planet of the Apes bonus episode. Maybe we could do that at some point. I don't know. We got some time before that comes out, obviously, but we could do it. But anyway, Patreon is going to get you access to that. It's $2 a month, patreon.com/watchreviewrepeat. So we encourage you to jump on board if you have a little extra money that you're not too sad about losing, and you get some rewards in return. Our website is watchreviewrepeat.com. We are on several social medias as well. We're on Twitter at WRRPod. We are on Facebook at facebook.com/watchreviewrepeat. We are on Instagram at watchreviewrepeat. You can get in contact with us by contacting us on any of those, if that's your preferred method of communication. Otherwise, you can send questions, comments, or suggestions our way at watchreviewrepeat@gmail.com. Next time we record, the Oscars will have happened, so if you have some thoughts on some things related to that, we'd certainly be happy to hear that. We'll see if there's any sort of slaps or any sort of big drama happening at the Oscars this year. So yeah, if you got something to say, send it our way. Our intro and outro track, It's Mechanolith by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Andrew and I haven't really talked about this extensively. I don't think we know specifically what we're going to do for our next episode. We have, I think, the past couple of years talked about the Oscars. We've had Anna on to talk about the Oscars. I think that might be a good thing to do to catch up on news, before we get some other stuff. I think Ghostbusters is coming down the pipe in March. Maybe some other Godzilla times Kong rather is coming. I think later in March. So we got some bigger blockbustery kind of movies coming in March, but that might be a good intermediary thing where we can talk about news, talk about the Oscars, especially if there is any sort of dramatic moments and dramatic wins and such. That's a good opportunity to catch up on that. But we'll see. Nothing set in stone right now. But we'll figure it out. And we'll be back before long. So, Henrique, thank you for hanging out with us for many hours talking about Dune. At this point, probably more Dune than you bargained for is probably what happened.
Sorry, I foresaw the hours.
Oh, you knew it was happening.
I knew this was the only way.
Yeah, well, if that's the way it was meant to be, then who am I to question you?
Yes.
All right. Well, Andrew, do you want to take us out?